Visit tcgcastle.com and get 5% discount on your first purchase with TCG Center 5 code. How's it going, guys? Once again, welcome back to Pokemon TCG Center. In today's video, we'll be looking at the deck for the standard format, and this is a Evolution Tauros-GX deck. So, after a lot of time, I simply decided to publish this deck and to play a little bit today with this deck. So it's simply a pretty cool deck for the standard format. It's a Espeon and the Umbreon-GX featuring Tauros as the 3 different GX attacks in play. So simply, as long as you have Espeon or Umbreon GX in play, and one of your evolutions from the ancient origins, you can also have that extra type in play. So if you have a Vaporeon and Espeon, your Espeon will also be a water Pokemon, which means you can strike with the Psychic and knocking out your opponent Volcanions for the one-hit knockout. That's just the purpose of this deck. On the other side, Tauros-GX with the Mad Bull GX can go for tons of damage, but also with the Fighting Fury Belt, he can simply benefit from the Rage. 15 Pokemon, 32 trainer cards, and 12 energies, 60 cards as always in total. The reason why I decided to pair Tauros in this deck is simply because I need to have some drop support. So the Shaymin is going to be good drop support, but if you run just 4 Eevees and 2 Shaymins, there's a multiple options that you're probably going to start with Shaymin instead of the Eevee, so you really want to have also Tauros for the backup, because it's simply better to start with the Tauros and absorb some damage counters and simply Rage or Mad Bull instead of just starting with the Shaymin. But even if we start with the Shaymin, it's not the end of the world, because we can simply Sky Return. So 4 Eevees with the Energy Evolution, now 1/1 line of the Jolteon, Flareon, and Vaporeon, and 2 copies of Espeon and 2 copies of Umbreon-GX, featuring 2 Shaymins and 2 Tauros-GX. So from the item cards, I'm running 2 copies of Enhanced Hammer, simply because I can discard a special energy attached to one of my opponent's Pokemon in play. I decided to go without Flowstone, so 2 Escape Ropes in this build. Sometimes you can benefit from Escape Rope, because you can simply save your Tauros with 70, 60, 70, 80, 100 damage counters instead of just using the Rage or Mad Bull. So you can simply Escape Rope with him down to the bench, keeping him for something bigger and for the bigger and better in the late game, just using Lysandre, so you can Escape Rope to one of your evolutions, for example to Espeon, confuse your opponent active Pokemon with the Psybeam, and simply force him to switch down to the bench or take 3 damage counters in case he flipped the tails of the coin flip. So I really like the Espeon in this build, because it's pretty cool, especially for that Psybeam. A single Special Charge is Super Rod, of course, for energy recycle and Pokemon recycle back to the deck from discard pile. 3 Trainers Mails, 4 Ultra Balls, and 4 V-Seekers. Unfortunately, only 4 copies of Ultra Ball, no Nest Ball, no Level Ball in this build, but I was also thinking about maybe adding 2 Nest Balls, but then I need simply to cut my Pearl City and Delinquent. Sometimes both Pearl City and Delinquent can be so devastating for your opponent, especially if you discard a couple energies, couple basic energies with the Dark Wall GX, and a couple energies, special energies with the Enhanced Hammers, and then simply even more, Delinquent can just destroy your opponent completely. 1 Lysandre, 1 Olympia for that switch. Well, Olympia will help us a lot in this deck, so if we don't have Escape Rope or Floatstone, we can simply Olympia down to switch to another Pokemon on the bench. 3 copies of N and 4 copies of Sycamore for the drop support. As always, if you have Jolteon in play, you can simply have free retreat with the Jolteon, for example, so that's also a good thing about those evolutions. 4 tool cards, 2 of them are going to be Fighting Fury Belts, of course, just mainly for the Tauros, and 2 of them are going to be Wide Lens, because we can simply use the advantage with that Shadow Bullet, sniping down to the bench for maybe weakness, and applying 60 instead 30 damage counters. 12 energies in total. I decided to go with 4 Double Course energies, 4 Darkness energies, and 4 Psychic energies, and overall I feel this is the sweet spot for this build. If you're looking for any of these cards, as always, you can find them on tcgcastle.com. With TCG Center 5 code, you can get 5% discount on your purchase, so keep that in mind. You can also trade your bulk in exchange for Sun and Moon booster box. All the instructions are in my video description, so make sure to check that until supplies are actually available. So let's do some game test and see this deck in action, so see you in the game. Okay guys, so I'm starting first. My opening hand contained 0 basic Pokemons, so I will need to reshuffle my hand and draw 7 new. Not sure if my opponent will have any of the starters, so there we go, there is 1 basic for him. I think for me the best start is definitely Eevee, and both energies, Darkness and Psychic, so I can just decide in which evolution I'm gonna evolve, depending on my opponent. Strategy on the other side, so again, no basic Pokemon, that's 2 extra cards for my opponent. I'm starting with the Tauros. Okay, not the worst possible start, still better than starting with the Shaymin. I have Escape Rope and Ultra Ball available, which means I can have my Espeon in active position turn 1. I can also limit my opponent bench space with the Parallel City. So I have a couple different options to do. So let's just take the look on the other side. Oh, a Tauros is also on the other side. Well, since there's a Tauros on the other side, I'm gonna just simply use the Ultra Ball for something like Parallel City and let it be a V Seeker and something like a Super Rod Eevee instead of Shaymin. It might sound like a crazy idea, but I don't care too much. I have my Espeon in play. I have Escape Rope for next turn. I can also let my opponent to attack my Tauros if he really wants. Really doesn't matter. So let's just put still that Pearl City in play and limit his bench options down to 3. And overall, this is gonna be it. As I mentioned it, if he decides to attack my Tauros, of course I'm just gonna... There's a Fighting Fury Belt. Of course I'm just gonna Escape Rope down to my Espeon. Well, there's just a 1 Fire Energy attached to Tauros, which means this turn Tauros will not be able to attack, and there we go with the end. So that end gonna help me a lot, simply because I'm gonna draw 6 new fresh cards. So Fire deck on the other side featuring Tauros-GXs. Okay. So it's the Typhlosion. Which means I'm gonna need something like first Trainers Mail, maybe for another Ultra Ball, maybe not. I'm thinking about just reshuffling back my hand with that end, simply because I need a couple more good resources to draw. Fighting Fury Belt, a double Course Energy. I mean, I can start applying some pressure to my opponent Tauros. Overall, I don't feel that's gonna be great, because if I decide to attack him for 70, Mad Wolf will knock me out. I mean, then I can simply respond with my Psychics knocking out his Tauros, but still, I don't know how good that's gonna be. There's just another Fire Energy, so if he decides right now to... Oh, there's a Lily. There's actually a Ilima, whatever the name of the card is, so we're both gonna drop 3 cards. I'm getting that Lysandre. There's a Horn attack for 70. Well, best top deck I could get. Let it be for Shaymin-EX, and let's set up for 5. The reason I decide to keep my Fighting Fury Belt is simply because I can still attach my Fighting Fury Belt either way to my Shaymin or maybe to Tauros. This is gonna be for Shaymin, simply because I need more resources here with that second Shaymin in the setup. 2 extra cards for setup. I'm still searching for the double Course Energy. I can't find a double Course Energy. What I can find is my Ultra Ball for 1 more Eevee. After that, I'm forced to use my V Seeker for that end. Well, it's better to discard both VS Seeker and N instead of just energy because it's a very important resource. Oh, no way. To let my opponent or not let my opponent to knocks out my Tauros? That's a good question. Well, I'm gonna risk. No risk, no race. Well, I'm actually taking a huge risk. Because he have like 2 more turns to knocks out my Tauros because he's simply striking for 70. 70, 70, 70, that's 210. But there's one Typhlosion on the other side. And my biggest concern, of course, is going to be Typhlosion. So I'm going to need somehow to clear my bench space, of course, discard my Shaymins, somehow even get my Vaporeon in play, so I can have that one-hit knockout against Typhlosion. However, 70 more damage counters down to my Tauros means I'm going to have... I'm still gonna have enough for the Rage, for example, knocking out his Typhlosion on the bench, because 140 plus 20 is 160 and 10 is 170. So for me it's better to top deck something, or this is just gonna be very uncomfortable position. There we go, a Horn attack for like a 70. Escape Rope is a top deck. Well, that's pretty cool top deck, to be honest. Because right now I can simply keep my Tauros, force my opponent to promote something else, and I can even go with my Wide-GX, for example. I can simply just Psybeam his Typhlosion if he decides to promote one. But for him, probably the best promotion is going to be Quilava. Decided to go with another Tauros. Well, if that's going to be the case, I'm just going to use my Psybeam and confuse the Tauros, hitting for like a 30. That's just going to be it. That's just going to be it. I mean, my Enhanced Hammers are not going to be great in this matchup. The top deck was good. I'm pretty happy with the top deck. Really cannot complain too much against it. However, I would love to see maybe top deck right now Professor Sycamore for 7. There is one Fire Energy attached to his Tauros. And of course, right now I need to stop with my attacks. And of course with my Espeon-GX. Oh, there's a VS Seeker for Sycamore. But imagine top deck something like a double Course Energy. Well, then I can simply trade the knockout against his Tauros. Even better, if the top deck is going to be something like a VS Seeker, I can always Lysandre and knocks out maybe even his Typhlosion. Okay, I can't knock out his Typhlosion, but I can still confuse him. Sycamore is going to be top deck. Alright, so there's a double Course Energy. There's also Trainers Mail for the VS Seeker. I'm gonna grab that VS Seeker. I'm gonna think a little bit about should I maybe just knock him out with my Rage. Yeah, let's just knock out our opponent with that Rage here, or maybe just play the Wide-GX. Putting a couple damage counters to his Typhlosion, maybe 5 to each. Yeah, it's really hard to think what to do. I mean, Typhlosions are going to be the biggest concern, of course, because they're going to strike for the most damage counters in this matchup. On the other side, I can always do Wide-GX, and I can put 5 damage counters to each Typhlosion, which means I can strike for 90 with my Psyche, so that's still not going to be enough. Still, if I go with one more Psybeam, Mad Bull GX can't one-hit knock out my Espeon. However, next turn I can simply grab VS Seeker and maybe Lysandre and knock out one of his Typhlosions with my Tauros-GX. I think this is going to be the best thing I can do. Not a Tauros, but Typhlosions on the bench. Still, if he decides to waste one more energy, that's one less energy for that massive eruption. And overall, 5 energies in play, 1 in discard pile, which means that's 5 energies in total. Of course, you need 3 energies to one-hit knock out my Espeon with the massive eruption. But of course, if you... oh, there's another Lima. Ilima. Alright, so he flipped tails, I'm gonna flip heads, I hope. Yeah, I'm gonna draw 6 cards. There's an Enhanced Hammer and Wide Lens. Both of these cards gonna be discarded. He took tails on the coin flip, so he knocks him out. Alright, for me, this is just gonna be 1 Ultra Ball to get rid of some unnecessary cards on my hand that I'm not gonna need. Then I'm gonna attach my Double Colorless energy, and of course I'm gonna play my Sycamore. Oh, Escape Rope. Sai can go right now for 120, and I think right now is just perfect time to knock out his Tauros for 120. If he really wants to knock me out, he's gonna need 3 energies from 5 top cards with the Massive Eruption. If he flipped 2 of them, that's not gonna be great for him, of course, because then I can just simply Olympia into my Tauros and knocking out his... oh, I don't see a single energy. How bad that really was. So I'm using my Olympia, I'm switching down to my Tauros, I'm attaching my energy to my Tauros-GX on the bench. Unfortunately I can't Delinquent, but I wish I can. And I'm just gonna use my Rage, which is gonna be enough for the knockout. 170. 1 prize for me. It's a Eevee. My hand is huge. My hand is huge. That's just... sure, that's just fine. On the other side, he had 2 different options. Use Massive Eruption or strike with 70 with his Tauros. If he decides to go for 70, he simply can't one-hit knock at my Tauros, which means I have available resource in my hand, which is a VA Seeker for Lysandre, and I can simply Rage his Typhlosion. Which means I will still have Mad Bull GX available to use, and I'm gonna be able to perform a one-hit knockout against his Tauros, but he decided not to do it. And oh, Massive Eruption, 1 last card was a energy, so that's the knockout. Oh, that was a huge knockout. That was really huge knockout for my opponent, which means I'm just gonna use my Eevee and I'm gonna put it down to the bench. I'm gonna play my Delinquent right now because I think it's time to discard some of the resources from my opponent's hand. And I'm gonna just use my Psybeam. I'm just gonna use my Psybeam. So he decided to discard a couple energies. Of course, he can just recycle them back with the energy recycle. So I'm just striking with my Psybeam. So striking with the Psybeam, of course, is pretty risky, but if your opponent active Pokemon is confused, and if he flip tails on the coin flip, the game is over because he simply can't perform a knockout. He can't do a damage counters. He can't do nothing. I managed to top my Vaporeon, which means I can simply knock out his Typhlosion here. But I'm thinking about the Wide Lens GX maybe? Yeah, I'm gonna do Wide GX right now and put 10 damage counters to his Tauros on the bench. He can simply have a 1 more turn of the Massive Eruption. He can simply get nothing. I can even lose this game right now, just because I decide to take a big risk, the biggest risk probably. But if you flip tails on the coin flip, then the game is gonna be over. But of course, I shouldn't do that. I should just knock out his Typhlosion with my Psychic, let his Tauros to become active one, switch down to my Tauros, let him strike me for like a 60-70, and then just simply use my Manpool. But he flipped the tails on the coin flip, and I actually end up pretty well here. So I can strike with my Shadow Bullet on the bench for 60, which means I can knock out his Typhlosion. Of course I'm gonna do it. And right now I'm gonna play one energy to my Shaymin. We'll also play my Trainer's Mail. I have only one card left. And that's gonna be a Shadow Bullet for 90. And of course, enough for the knockout against his Typhlosion. And simply, if he wants to knock out my one of my Pokemons in play, he can simply do it. But overall, he can't win this game anymore. Of course, as always, I like to take a lot of risk playing and pushing the deck to the limits. So there's just a Rage, which means he knocks me out with the Rage, and I can simply knock him back, even with my Sky Returning for like 40 and knocking out his Tauros in a big fashion, winning this match and taking my last two prize cards. So there you go. It was a little bit risk playing against that Typhlosion, no doubt about it, because I could simply just win more earlier. If that Massive Eruption was actually heads of the coin flip, and if there was 3 energies, I would lose the game, because simply that he could just use the Rage, not the Rage, but the Medipole GX for the one-hit knocker against any of my Pokemons in play. But that didn't happen, and overall I managed to get victory. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos. If you have any questions, make sure to leave comments below. So till the next time, have a nice day and goodbye.